Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
All right, so Trump is talking about ending the war in Ukraine. He's speaking to Russia. He's allowed his top officials, Mike Waltz, Marco Rubio, to meet with Russian counterparts in Saudi Arabia, holding diplomacy, which the Biden administration refused to do for 3 years of this awful war. And we know that liberals are freaking out about this because they want, for some reason, to have an ongoing, never-ending proxy war with Russia. Well, how are Republicans handling this? Because most of them have also been on board with this war with Russia. But now they're in the awkward position where their guy, Donald Trump, is against it. And how then are they handling the fact that their president, Donald Trump, is ending the war in Ukraine, which many Republicans have supported? Well, let's hear a few examples. This is Congressmember Dan Crenshaw. Never met a war he didn't like. And this is how he is venting his disappointment with the war coming to an end. He is trying to put the blame and the onus on Europe.
Europeans need to demand a seat at the table by being uncomfortably aggressive, which is something they haven't done. You should be threatening things to Putin that actually make you uncomfortable, because that's the only language Putin speaks, is power.
So he wants the Europeans to be uncomfortably aggressive toward Russia. What does he mean? What does he mean by uncomfortably aggressive? Like threaten nuclear war? That level of discomfort? Call them names? It's not clear. And what he's doing here is basically because he can't criticize Trump because Trump is the king of his party now. He has to take out his frustration that Trump's not being a warmonger on the Europeans. And this is what else Dan Crenshaw has to say.
And when General Kellogg is at that table with Putin, he's only got a finite amount of leverage. And there's only so much more leverage that the U.S. can impose. And if anybody can do it, I think it's Donald Trump. And he's already said that nothing is off the table. Vice President Vance said that nothing is off the table. Economic, military, they will use the amount of leverage they can. My message to European leaders is, if we want to win, if we want a better outcome for Ukraine at the end of these peace talks, you need to be uncomfortably aggressive. You need to not just bolster your own defense spending, because that's a long-term issue. That's a long-term investment. Yeah. You need to be talking about where you're going to be putting actual troops on the ground. Stop following our lead and actually take the lead. Let us be actually holding you back. That would be an ideal situation.
Hold me back. Hold me back. That's what he wants Europe to be doing. Like the guy in the bar who's telling his friends, hold me back against Russia. That's what Dan Crenshaw is advising the Europeans. And he's scrambling here because he wants to continue playing tough guy against Russia. And he can't anymore because Donald Trump is turning against that whole project of turning Ukraine into a proxy and using it to bleed Russia. So he wants Europeans to take over the job. And Europeans are saying no thanks. Macron, remember when French President Emmanuel Macron a year ago threatened that, oh yeah, maybe we'll go send troops in if we need to? He's not going to do that. He's already said he's not going to do that. So Dan Crenshaw is looking for a fake tough guy, and none are to be found.
And vastly change the power dynamic when dealing with Putin.
All right, so that's Dan Crenshaw taking out his frustration with Trump not being a warmonger on the Europeans. Let's hear from Senator Roger Wicker, another
Putin can be trusted in these negotiations.
No. Putin is a war criminal and should be in jail for the rest of his life, if not executed.
All right, so Putin should be executed according to Armed Services Chairman Roger Wicker. Really helpful when you're trying to negotiate an end to a war is to call for the leader of your rival to be executed. And imagine the reaction if a Russian lawmaker called for the president of the United States to be executed. It would not be very welcome. So that is Roger Wicker handling the news that Trump is making peace with Russia. Let's hear from Senator Mark Wayne Mullen.
President Trump poised to actually really turn the screws on Putin?
Absolutely, because Putin knows the one person that can truly change the war is the United States. If we went all in for Ukraine, if we went all in with the resources we have, from air superiority to the weapons that we can deploy to Ukraine, Putin knows at that point he would be in a extremely negative position. I think that being the opportunity for President Trump to talk to Putin and say, listen, we want to end the war. We don't want to have to engage more, but we're not going to allow you to move forward. So let's negotiate a peace deal here, or you're going to force our hand to be farther involved. That's what peace through strength is. It's negotiating peace, but using strength as a backup. If you make us do something, we will do it. We did this in Syria when President Trump was in office in 2017. You saw that Putin went ahead and engaged with Syria. They used chemical weapons. Immediately, what President Trump did is he bombed the airport and took over the airspace that Russia was control over, and he had control of the airspace for the remainder of his presidency. So we had the ability to do it, and Putin knows that.
All right. So, I mean, putting aside the chemical weapons claim, we've covered that many times here on the Jimmy Dore show, and I have at the Gray Zone as well. The chemical weapons allegation is undermined by leaks from the OPCW, the whistleblowers who exposed a cover-up of their investigation, which found that there was no evidence to support the allegation that Syria used chemical weapons. So, but putting that aside, this is called denial, because what he's saying here is that, yeah, no, Trump is going to still threaten Russia with airstrikes, with our air power. We're still going to be a tough guy. He's in denial here. Whereas Dan Crenshaw was like saying the Europeans have to step up and be the tough guy. Mark Wayne Mullen is in denial because he thinks Trump is still being the tough guy and is still going to threaten Russia with war. And at least so far, that's not what Trump is doing at all. Trump has already basically taken NATO for Ukraine off the table. And he said, we're not going to send troops to go fight Russia. And he's saying, I want to end this war. And Mark Wayne Mullen, you know, being a Trump guy, can't criticize Trump. And so I think he's chosen the route of denial and ascribing to Trump a position that he doesn't have, that Trump is still going to threaten Vladimir Putin. Somebody else who definitely wants to threaten Vladimir Putin is Republican Senator Thom Tillis.
Support President Trump, and I believe that most of his policies on national security are right. I believe his instincts are pretty good. But what I'm telling you,
all right, so I like Trump. Okay, he's usually right, but not when it comes to making peace with Russia and ending this catastrophic, costly proxy war. That's Thom Tillis' message.
Ever believes that there is any space for Vladimir Putin in the future of a stable globe, better go to Ukraine, they better go to Europe, they better invest the time to understand that this man is a cancer and the greatest threat to democracy in my lifetime. And it will be a cancer that spreads into the South China Sea, into Taiwan, and metastasizes across the globe. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you that Vladimir Putin is a liar, a murderer, and a man responsible for ordering the systematic torture, kidnapping, and rape of innocent civilians, believe me, because the evidence is mile high.
All right, so that's Senator Thom Tillis saying, I agree with Trump most of the time, but not this time when he's making peace with literal cancer, Vladimir Putin, and warning that if peace is made, then the cancer will spread. And this is called desperation. We've seen denial from people like Mark Wayne Mullen. This is just outright desperation, warning about a takeover of the world by Putin if Trump makes peace with him. So that is how Republicans are handling Trump making peace with Russia, joining their Democratic counterparts in freaking out and living in denial.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.